Have you ever stopped to wonder why you were born with that specific eye color? Why not another one? Carl Jung believed that nothing about us is accidental. Every mark, every trait, every characteristic carries fragments of memories that transcend this lifetime. What if I told you that your eye color isn't just genetics, but a secret code left by your soul about who you really were before being born into this body? Imagine for a moment, what if those brown eyes hold secrets of a medieval warrior? What if those blue eyes carry the wisdom of a Tibetan monk, or if the green ones reveal the essence of an ancestral healer? Jung spent decades studying the collective unconscious and discovered disturbing patterns between physical characteristics and past life. Memories, what he found about eyes, will completely change the way you look at yourself in the mirror. Brace yourself, because what you're about to discover might explain inexplicable traumas, irrational fears, and talents you never trained for. 1. The mystery of brown eyes, warrior souls from the past. Your brown eyes might be the most common on Earth, but Jung discovered something extraordinary hidden in this simplicity. The collective unconscious holds patterns that repeat across centuries, and brown-eyed souls carry a specific imprint that speaks of strength forged through countless battles. Not necessarily physical wars, but the kind of struggles that demand raw courage and an unbreakable will to survive. When you look into brown eyes, you're seeing the color of Earth itself. This isn't poetic language, it's symbolic truth. Jung believed our physical features mirror the archetypal experiences stored deep within our psyche. Brown represents grounding, stability, and the primal force needed to protect what matters most. These souls lived lives where hesitation meant death, where decisions had to be instant and absolute. Think about the weight you sometimes carry without understanding why. That inexplicable sense of responsibility that sits on your shoulders even when nobody asked you to bear it. Brown-eyed individuals often report feeling like they're constantly preparing for something, as if danger lurks around every corner, even in the safest moments. This isn't paranoia. It's cellular memory bleeding through from incarnations where vigilance meant survival. The warrior archetype doesn't always wear armor or carry swords. Sometimes it's the single mother working 3 jobs, the person who stands up when everyone else looks away, the soul who refuses to abandon their post even when the world crumbles. Brown eyes reveal lives spent defending villages from invaders, protecting families through famines, standing firm when kingdoms fell. These weren't always heroes in the traditional sense. They were the necessary ones, the ones who did what nobody else would. Jung noticed that brown-eyed patients frequently dreamed of fortifications, walls, and protective barriers. They described recurring visions of standing guard, of watching horizons for approaching threats, of that peculiar exhaustion that comes from never fully resting. Their past life wounds often manifested as chronic tension in the shoulders and neck, as if still carrying invisible shields and weapons. But here's what most people miss about the warrior soul. The deepest wound isn't from battle itself, it's from the moments they couldn't save everyone. Brown-eyed souls carry grief that defies logical explanation, a sorrow for losses they can't consciously remember. They feel guilty for tragedies that happened lifetimes ago, still trying to make amends for falls they couldn't prevent and loved ones they couldn't protect. This explains why people with brown eyes often become the protectors in their current relationships, sometimes to their own detriment. They give until empty, fight battles that aren't theirs, and struggle to lay down arms even in times of peace. The warrior doesn't know how to exist without a war to fight, without someone to defend, without a purpose that demands everything they have. 2. Blue eyes and the call of deep waters. Where brown eyes speak of earth and battlegrounds, blue eyes carry the memory of something entirely different, yet equally powerful. If warriors were forged in fire and blood, blue-eyed souls were shaped by the endless mysteries of water and sky. Jung understood that these opposing elements created fundamentally different types of consciousness, different ways of moving through the world. Blue eyes hold the vastness of oceans and the infinity of heavens. These souls didn't fight with swords, they navigated by stars. They didn't build walls, they crossed horizons. The collective unconscious reveals a pattern among blue-eyed individuals that speaks of lives spent in contemplation, in seeking, in the relentless pursuit of something beyond the visible world. Where warriors needed certainty, these souls lived in questions. This is why blue-eyed people often feel like strangers in their own lives, as if they're visiting this world rather than belonging to it. There's a peculiar homesickness that has no home, a longing for places they've never been, or perhaps for places that exist between the physical and spiritual realms. Jung called this the transcendent function, the psyche's drive to unite opposites, and blue eyes signal souls who've spent lifetimes walking that razor edge between worlds. The water connection runs deeper than metaphor. Past life memories surface in blue-eyed individuals through powerful attractions to oceans, rivers, and lakes. But it's not the peaceful beach vacation they crave. It's something more primal. Standing at the edge of deep water triggers memories they can't quite grasp, feelings of both terror and belonging. Some recall being sailors who spent years away from land. Others remember lives as island dwellers, and many carry inexplicable knowledge about tides, currents, and the moods of water. Jung documented cases where blue-eyed patients experienced vivid past life recall involving monasteries, temples, and sacred spaces near water. These weren't warriors defending territory, they were seekers preserving wisdom, monks copying ancient texts, mystics spending decades in meditation. Their battles were internal, fought in the vast landscapes of consciousness rather than on physical ground. This created souls who understand silence, who know that the deepest truths cannot be spoken, only experienced. But this gift comes with profound loneliness. Blue-eyed souls remember what it's like to be truly understood by others who shared their spiritual path. They've known communities built on consciousness rather than blood, where connection happened in silence and recognition was instant. Being born into a world that values noise over depth, speed over contemplation, creates a fundamental disconnect that blue eyes can't hide. 3. Green in the eyes, the forgotten healers. While warriors fought and seekers searched, there existed another type of soul that moved through past lives with a different kind of power. Green eyes carry the rarest gift of all, the ability to bridge the gap between physical suffering and spiritual wholeness. Jung recognized that healing wasn't just about curing bodies. It was about understanding the invisible threads that connect pain to purpose, illness to initiation, death to rebirth. Green is the color of life itself, of growth pushing through darkness, of nature's relentless drive to restore balance. Those born with green eyes carry cellular memories of lives spent in forests, gardens, and wild places where plants whispered their secrets to those willing to listen. These weren't doctors in the modern sense. They were the ones who knew which roots stopped bleeding, which leaves brought down fevers, which flowers eased the terror of dying. But the healing gift went far beyond plants and remedies. Green-eyed souls remember what it felt like to sit with someone's pain without trying to fix it, to hold space for transformation without forcing it, to trust that bodies know how to heal when given what they need. They lived as midwives who caught babies and eased elders into death with equal reverence. They were the village healers everyone sought in crisis but feared in times of comfort, because they saw too much, knew too much, felt too much. This is why green-eyed people today often feel overwhelmed in crowds and drained after social interactions. They're still picking up on everyone's unspoken pain, still sensing the illnesses brewing beneath healthy appearances, still carrying the weight of suffering that others hide. The healer's curse is feeling everything while being expected to fix everything. And green eyes can't turn off this reception even when it exhausts them to their core. Jung found that green-eyed patients frequently reported dreams of gathering plants, preparing medicines, and performing rituals they'd never learned in this lifetime. They described memories of being sought out by desperate families, of making life or death decisions with nothing but intuition and inherited wisdom. Many recalled being persecuted, feared, or killed for their gifts, because healing always threatens those who profit from sickness and control through fear. The persecution memories run deep. Green-eyed souls often carry inexplicable fears of being seen, of standing out, of claiming their natural abilities. They remember what happened when they were too visible, too powerful, too effective at helping others break free from suffering. The witch trials weren't just historical events, they were soul-level traumas that still echo in anyone born with the healer's mark in their eyes. This creates a painful pattern in current lives where green-eyed individuals sabotage their own gifts. They know how to help, but hesitate to offer it. They see solutions, but keep quiet. They feel called to healing work, but pursue safe, conventional paths instead. The old terror whispers that being powerful means being punished, that helping too much draws dangerous attention, that it's safer to hide than to shine. Yet the healer's soul cannot rest while others suffer. Green eyes reveal lives dedicated to service, often at great personal cost. These souls didn't heal for glory or gold, they healed because not healing felt like dying. They understood that their gifts weren't theirs to keep, but to share, even when sharing meant sacrifice. This selflessness becomes both their greatest strength and their deepest struggle, because learning when not to give feels like betraying their fundamental nature. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. 4. Black eyes and the weight of ancient memories. From the healing green that bridges worlds, we move into the darkest depths where few souls dare to venture. Black eyes are rare enough to stop people mid-sentence, to make strangers uncomfortable, to create instant reactions that range from fascination to fear. Jung understood that this reaction isn't random, it's recognition. Black eyes signal something old, something that's been here too many times, something that carries knowledge most souls aren't ready to possess. These aren't simply dark brown eyes, they're true black, where the iris and pupil merge into one continuous darkness. Looking into them feels like staring into wells with no bottom, into night skies before stars existed, into the void that preceded creation. This darkness isn't evil, despite what superstition claims. It's the darkness of deep time, of memory stretching back beyond recorded history, of souls who've walked this earth since humanity's earliest days. Black-eyed individuals carry a weight that's hard to put into words. They often appear older than their years, as if time moves differently through them. Children with black eyes unnerve adults because they seem to see through pretense and polite lies, cutting straight to truth with an unsettling directness. They ask questions that shouldn't occur to young minds and accept answers about death and loss with unusual calm, as if they've known these realities for far longer than their current age suggests. Jung documented patterns among black-eyed patients that revealed past lives in ancient civilizations, in times before written language, in cultures that modern archaeology has barely touched. These souls remember being priestesses in temples that crumbled into dust thousands of years ago, shamans who walked between life and death as easily as crossing rivers, keepers of traditions so old their origins are lost to time. They carry ancestral memory not from one bloodline, but from humanity itself. This creates a peculiar isolation in modern life. Black-eyed souls feel displaced in time, as if they're living in the wrong era, speaking a language nobody else understands. They're drawn to ruins, to artifacts, to anything that connects them to the deep past. Museums make them weep without knowing why. Ancient music stirs memories they can't quite reach. They feel homesick for civilizations that fell before their great-grandparents were born. The weight manifests physically. Black-eyed people often struggle with unexplained exhaustion, as if they're carrying centuries of human experience in their cells. They have vivid dreams that feel more like memories, witnessing events from perspectives that shift between different bodies, different genders, different eras. Sleep becomes a journey through time rather than rest, leaving them depleted rather than refreshed. But this ancient knowing also grants them unusual wisdom. Black-eyed souls understand that everything repeats, that human nature doesn't change, that the same lessons play out across different stages throughout history. This makes them skeptical of modern certainties and resistant to cultural hysteria. They've seen empires rise and fall, watched civilizations destroy themselves through arrogance, witnessed humanity survive impossible odds. Nothing shocks them because they've already seen it all before, just wearing different costumes. 5. Hazel eyes, the shapeshifters of time. After witnessing the ancient depths of black eyes, we encounter something entirely different, yet equally mysterious. Hazel eyes refuse to be pinned down, shifting between green and brown and gold, depending on light, mood, and some invisible factor that defies explanation. Jung recognized this changeability as significant, a physical manifestation of souls who've lived so many different types of lives that they can't be contained in a single category or color. These are the adapters, the survivors who thrived not through strength or wisdom alone, but through their ability to become what each situation demanded. Hazel-eyed souls carry memories of lives where flexibility meant survival, where rigid identity was a luxury they couldn't afford. They were the travelers who learned new languages and customs with ease, the diplomats who moved between warring factions, the traders who understood how to speak to both peasants and kings. This adaptive quality creates a strange experience of self. Hazel-eyed people often struggle to answer the simple question of who they really are, because the honest answer is that they're many things depending on context. They shift personas so naturally, they sometimes forget which version is authentic. Around family, they become one person, at work another, with different friends yet another, and alone in quiet moments, they wonder which face belongs to their actual soul. Jung called this the problem of the persona, the masks we wear to navigate social worlds. But for hazel-eyed individuals, the masks aren't just protective layers, they're past life identities bleeding through. Each shift in eye color reflects a different lifetime surfacing, a different set of memories taking the wheel. The person with hazel eyes isn't being fake, they're being all of their selves at once, and that multiplicity feels both natural and deeply confusing. Past life memories come in fragments rather than complete narratives. A hazel-eyed soul might remember being a merchant in one flash, a farmer in another, a performer in a third, with no clear timeline connecting them. These weren't lives of singular purpose like the warrior or healer. These were lives of necessary transformation, of learning to read situations quickly and adjust accordingly, of surviving by blending in rather than standing out. This creates a peculiar talent for understanding different perspectives. Hazel-eyed people can genuinely see all sides of an argument because they've lived all sides. They've been rich and poor, powerful and powerless, victim and perpetrator across different incarnations. This makes them excellent mediators, but terrible ideologues. They can't commit fully to any rigid worldview because their soul memory knows that truth shifts depending on where you stand. But this gift of adaptability comes with a painful cost. Never fully committing to one identity means never fully belonging anywhere. Hazel-eyed souls feel like permanent outsiders, capable of fitting into any group, but never quite being of that group. They're too much of everything to be comfortably one thing. Too logical for the mystics, too intuitive for the rationalists, too serious for the light-hearted, too playful for the solemn. The shapeshifter's curse is that people trust them less because they can't be easily categorized. Others sense the multiplicity and interpret it as deception rather than depth. Hazel-eyed individuals face accusations of being fake, two-faced, or manipulative simply because they contain more variations than most souls can comprehend. They're not lying about who they are, they're telling different truths that are all simultaneously real. This connects directly to what we learned about black-eyed souls carrying ancient weight, because hazel eyes carry ancient breadth. Where black eyes go deep into one well, hazel eyes spread wide across many streams. Both types of souls are old, but they age differently. One through intensity, the other through variety. Together they show us that there's no single path to wisdom, no one way to accumulate the kind of knowing that transcends a single lifetime. 6. Grey eyes, between two worlds. From the shapeshifters who've lived many types of lives, we move to souls who've spent lifetimes literally between worlds. Grey eyes are rare enough to cause double takes, pale enough to seem almost colorless, shifting enough to appear silver in certain light. Jung identified grey as the color of transition, of thresholds, of the liminal spaces where transformation happens. People born with grey eyes carry memories of existing in those in-between places where most souls only pass through briefly. These are the walkers of boundaries, the ones who stood at crossroads in past lives, who served as bridges between the living and dead, who guided souls through their darkest transitions. Grey-eyed individuals remember what it felt like to be neither fully here nor fully there, to exist in that strange territory where normal rules don't apply and time moves differently. They were the death doulas before that term existed, the psychopomps, who helped confused spirits find their way, the threshold guardians who protected sacred spaces. This explains why grey-eyed people often feel like they don't fully inhabit their bodies. There's a dreamlike quality to how they move through life, as if they're viewing everything through a veil, participating but not quite present. Others notice this too, describing grey-eyed individuals as ethereal, distant, hard to reach. It's not aloofness or coldness, it's the natural state of a soul, accustomed to existing partially in other dimensions. Jung found that grey-eyed patients reported unusual experiences with time and space. They described moments where they felt simultaneously in multiple places, where past and future collapsed into an eternal now, where the boundaries between their consciousness and others became permeable. These weren't psychotic breaks, but glimpses of how they once perceived reality, when their role required them to navigate realms that most people never consciously access. The threshold position created specific talents that carry into current lives. Grey-eyed souls excel at helping others through transitions, whether that's death, divorce, career changes, or identity shifts. They have an uncanny ability to remain calm in crisis, to hold space for chaos without being consumed by it, to guide without controlling. They understand that transformation requires destroying what was before building what comes next, and they're not afraid of that necessary destruction. But living between worlds means never fully resting in either. Grey-eyed individuals struggle with feeling grounded, often floating through life rather than planting roots. They have difficulty making long-term commitments because some part of them knows that everything is temporary, that all structures eventually dissolve, that permanence is an illusion. This wisdom makes them poor consumers and reluctant participants in societies built on the lie that things last forever. The isolation runs deeper than what hazel-eyed shapeshifters experience. At least shapeshifters can adapt and connect, even if those connections feel incomplete. Grey-eyed souls often feel like they're observing life from behind glass, watching humans do human things, but never quite remembering how to join in authentically. They're homesick for the threshold spaces where they once belonged, where their gifts made sense, where being neither here nor there was exactly right. 7. Amber eyes, the firekeepers. Moving from the misty thresholds of grey into something that burns with ancient intensity, we arrive at perhaps the most striking eye colour of all. Amber eyes glow with their own inner light, appearing golden or copper depending on the angle, sometimes flickering with orange and yellow like flames caught in glass. Jung recognized fire as the first technology, the first mystery humanity tamed, yet never fully controlled. And amber eyes mark souls who held sacred responsibility for this primal force. These weren't just people who tended fires in past lives. They were the keepers of eternal flames in temples, where letting the fire die meant catastrophic consequences for entire communities. They were the metal workers who understood heat and transformation at levels that bordered on alchemy. They were the ones who knew that fire wasn't just physical combustion, but spiritual power, capable of destroying and creating in equal measure, demanding absolute respect and constant vigilance. Amber-eyed souls carry memories of standing watch through long nights, of feeling the weight of collective survival resting on their ability to maintain the flame. They remember the meditation required to tend fire properly, the relationship that develops between keeper and kept, the way fire becomes almost alive when you spend enough time in its presence. This wasn't simple work, it was sacred duty that shaped their souls in ways that still burn through into current incarnations. This explains the particular intensity that amber-eyed people radiate even when sitting still. There's something burning inside them, a passionate core that never fully dims, an energy that makes others feel either drawn or overwhelmed. They can't do anything half-heartedly, because the firekeeper doesn't know how to tend something without full attention and devotion. When they love, they consume. When they work, they burn everything else away. When they commit, they become the thing they're committed to. Jung documented patterns showing amber-eyed individuals drawn to transformation work in their current lives, though they might not recognize it as such. They become the therapists who aren't afraid to burn away their clients' false stories, the artists who destroy and create obsessively, the revolutionaries who know that sometimes systems must be reduced to ash before anything better can grow. They understand that fire purifies through destruction, that some things must end completely before renewal becomes possible. But fire destroys its keeper too, if not properly contained. Amber-eyed souls struggle with burnout that goes beyond normal exhaustion. They give until there's nothing left, pour themselves out completely, then wonder why they feel hollow and dark. The firekeeper's ancient programming tells them that maintaining the flame matters more than maintaining themselves, that their personal needs are secondary to their sacred duty, even when nobody asks them to sacrifice everything. This creates volatile relationships where amber-eyed individuals alternate between passionate intensity and complete withdrawal. They burn so hot that partners feel either gloriously alive or completely consumed. There's no casual with amber eyes, no light involvement, no keeping things simple and easy. They're all in or they're gone, and the switch between these states can happen suddenly, like fire that roars to life or dies to embers with just a shift in wind. The firekeeper memory also manifests as powerful intuition about timing and readiness. Amber-eyed people know when something is ready to transform, when the heat is right, when the moment has arrived to strike. They understand that forcing transformation before its time ruins the outcome, just as pulling metal from the forge too early or too late destroys the work. This makes them surprisingly patient despite their intensity, willing to wait for exactly the right moment, even when others rush ahead. 8. Heterochromia, when two lives meet in one gaze. After exploring each color's distinct soul history, we arrive at the rarest phenomenon of all, eyes that refuse to match, each carrying a different color and therefore a different past. Jung would have recognized heterochromia as more than genetic accident. It's the visible mark of souls who live two simultaneous but contradictory past lives, so powerful that both imprinted equally on their eternal consciousness. Imagine dying in one life as a warrior and in another as a mystic, both deaths happening at precisely the same moment across different incarnations. Or living as both healer and destroyer in parallel existences, both roles claiming your soul with equal force. The universe couldn't choose which memory to encode in your eyes, so it gave you both. Each eye holds a complete story, and you were born to reconcile what seems irreconcilable. This creates an internal experience unlike anything single-colored eyes can understand. Heterochromic souls don't just feel conflicted. They feel fundamentally divided. It's not a matter of choosing between two paths. It's about containing two completely different beings within one body. One eye might carry the warrior's brown, while the other holds the mystic's blue, forcing this soul to somehow be both protector and seeker, fighter and philosopher, grounded and transcendent. People with heterochromia often report feeling like two different people, depending on which aspect is dominant at any given time. They'll have days where the warrior eye leads and everything becomes about strategy, protection, and taking action. Other days the mystic eye takes over, and suddenly they can't understand why they ever cared about earthly battles when spiritual truth is all that matters. This isn't mood swings, it's two complete past life personalities taking turns at the wheel. Jung would recognize this as the ultimate individuation challenge, the psyche's demand to integrate opposites at the highest level. Most people spend lifetimes trying to balance their inner contradictions. Heterochromic souls were born with the contradiction visible on their face, unable to hide from the work of unification. They're walking paradoxes, living koans, breathing reminders that truth contains opposites and wisdom requires holding both. This visibility creates its own burden. People react to heterochromia with fascination that quickly becomes uncomfortable. Strangers stare, make comments, ask invasive questions, or worse, attribute mystical powers without seeing the actual person behind the unusual eyes. Children with heterochromia learn early that they're marked as different, that something about them unsettles others, that their face becomes the first and sometimes only thing people remember about them. But the deepest challenge isn't external reaction, it's internal reconciliation. How does the part that remembers dying for loyalty live alongside the part that remembers transcending all earthly attachments? How does the healer's compassion coexist with the firekeeper's willingness to burn everything down? The heterochromic soul must find a way to honor both histories without letting either dominate completely, to be simultaneously everything they were without fragmenting under the pressure. This is why people with heterochromia often become bridges in their communities, able to speak multiple languages of human experience because they contain multiple complete perspectives. They can talk to the warriors and the mystics, the healers and the destroyers, the grounded and the transcendent, because they are all of these. They're not trying to understand different viewpoints, they're living them from the inside, feeling both truths as their own simultaneous reality. What heterochromia ultimately reveals is that the soul's journey isn't linear. We don't simply progress from one type of life to the next in orderly fashion. Sometimes we live multiple contradictory existences that all claim us equally, all shape us permanently, all demand integration in future incarnations. The heterochromic eye is proof that consciousness can hold infinitely more than we imagine, that we're capable of being everything at once if we're brave enough to attempt the impossible reconciliation. Now look in the mirror again, really look. Those eyes staring back at you aren't just yours, they belong to everyone you've ever been. The warrior who fell protecting others, the mystic who found truth in silence, the healer who absorbed too much pain, the ancient soul who's seen civilizations rise and fall, every fear that makes no sense, every talent you never trained for, every inexplicable pull towards certain places or people, it's all there, coded in the color you were born with. Jung spent his life proving that nothing about us is random. Your eyes chose their color for a reason. The question is, will you ignore what they're trying to tell you, or will you finally start listening to the lifetimes of wisdom they carry? Your past isn't behind you. It's looking back at you every time you catch your reflection. What are you going to do with that knowledge?